what's up? So my fiance and I just went on a short trip to New York City and to Iceland earlier this month, and this gave me the perfect opportunity to finally give my recently acquired Leica Q2 a proper run for its money. If you haven't seen last week's video about my experience using the Leica Q2 in New York City, feel free to check it out first, linked in the description below. And just as I said in my other video, this is not supposed to be a technical review or in fact any type of review. This is just me on a holiday in Iceland, taking you along for the 96 hours that we got to spend there. So same as in New York, I didn't go to Iceland with the specific goal of making epic photos in mind. Generally speaking, I always have a camera with me wherever I go, and that is obviously also the case when I'm on holiday. The photos that I take just happen while I'm out and about. Sometimes they turn out good, sometimes they don't. And just to give you a short overview of where I'm coming from in terms of camera gear, before I bought the Leica Q2, I used the Fuji X100V for almost 2 years since its release for my everyday and travel photography. And I really liked the results that I got from it. Now that I've had a chance to use the Q2 extensively as well, let's talk about how it performed while we were in Iceland. And for that, I will simply talk you through just about everything we did in the short time window we had there, and maybe talk a bit about the photos that I took along the way. Also, all of the shots shown in this video will be unedited unless stated otherwise. If you want to see some edited images, check out my Instagram in the description below. We arrived roughly at 6 AM at the airport in Reykjavic after a 5-hour overnight flight from JFK. Since there was also a 5-hour time difference, what should have been a 10-hour night shrunk down to basically 1 or 2 hours of bad sleep in a plane. At least we had some extra legroom on our flight, shout out to Iceland Air. So we arrived, got our rental car, which was this trusted little Dacia Duster, and took off. No time to lose. It took us about 40 minutes to get to the heart of Reykjavik, and our plan was to watch the sunrise from the top of Hallgrims Kirkja, or Hallgrims Church. Sorry to all of my viewers from Iceland if I butchered that name, but it's probably only going to get worse from here. Anyway, according to Google, the sun would rise at around 10 AM and the Hallgrims Church was supposed to open at 9 AM, but it didn't. No idea why. So we basically just strolled around for a couple of minutes, watched the sunrise, took a couple of shots, and got used to the cold weather and freezing winds. Even in those cold, early morning hours, with little to no sleep, we instantly fell in love with Iceland. Especially coming directly from New York City, it was incredible how clean and crispy the air was. You could almost taste it. And the quietness, even at the very heart of Reykjavik at 9 AM on a Sunday. I love Manhattan for how busy it is, but I don't think that I could live there for longer than a couple of months. In Iceland though, I felt right at home. Since the church was closed, we walked right into the next cafe that we came across to get some caffeine into our system, and we had a little chat with the owner of that cafe. He told us about this crazy storm that was forecasted to hit the area on the next day and told us to definitely abandon all travel plans we had. Now that was actually not the first time we heard about this storm, because our rental car agency basically told us the exact same thing earlier that morning when we got our car. We also got this rather unnerving message from the Icelandic Road Safety Department, and so well, there went our travel plans. On the upside, it was a lovely cafe with nice crab and coffee and a Star Wars themed toilet. Anyway, after about half an hour or so, we went back to Hallgrims Church to finally get that view over the city, and I always just like to get a sort of bird's eye view of any new place that I visit. If you ever are in Reykjavik, I would absolutely recommend you to spend those €8 to get up there and take in the view, especially at around sunrise. After that, we went for a little walk down to the haven of Reykjavik and took a couple of quick snaps along the way. I gotta say that I simply love places where you get mountains and sea views combined. This was, however, the first time that I saw mountains and sea views with snow. And what a sight! It was absolutely gorgeous, but also very cold and very windy. So after about an hour of walking, we went to a small hippie restaurant called Mama Reykjavik. I'm not vegan and I don't eat vegan very often, but after all the unhealthy food we enjoyed over in New York, having a bunch of fresh veggies, plus some of the best hummus that I've ever had, was just so refreshing and much needed indeed. Would recommend. Then it was time to get back on the road and drive to a national park called Thingvellir. Again, sorry for my pronunciation. There is a parking lot with toilets that must have some of the most glorious views ever for taking a leak. And there's also a pretty nice view over the park outside. So we spent a couple of minutes there, snapped a couple of shots and watched a dude set up his full FPV drone system to fly over the national park, only to pack it away without actually taking off. Speaking of flying drones though, I also packed my tiny DJI Mini 2 and I didn't use it once. While I love the Mini for its size, it is also very unstable in high winds. And boy do they have high winds in Iceland. So back to our trip, we drove for another 15 minutes to get to a parking lot from which we could get to a frozen waterfall that was only a short hike away. The views were breathtaking and I have never seen anything like it before. With that being said, in terms of views in Iceland, that was really just the beginning. We spent the rest of our day mostly just getting to our hotel, but even just driving in Iceland is such a wild experience. I think being in Iceland is probably the closest thing you can do to feel like you are on a vast, cold and uninhabited planet that is totally different to ours. It's just mesmerizing. Anyway, we arrived at our hotel for the night, had some lovely tacos at the local food hall for 50 euros, Iceland ain't cheap guys, and called it a day. So for our second day, we had planned to go on a long 350-kilometer drive along the south coast to get to our next hotel. Sadly, because of the storm warning that I mentioned earlier, we decided to reschedule and stay at the hotel we were at for another night to wait out the storm. The storm was actually supposed to hit us at around midnight in the first night that we stayed in Iceland, but it simply never arrived. So at around 1 p.m, with zero snow or winds anywhere to be seen, another beautifully cold and icy and not really all that stormy day in Iceland. There's our noble steed for the day. Not frosty at all. There's not even snow on the roof. That's disappointing for the storm of the century. Yay! Get in there. And half the day wasted already, we decided to just get out and explore the area within a 1-hour radius of our hotel. And that was so that we could still get back to our hotel if the weather actually did go bad all of a sudden. The weather in Iceland, generally speaking, is very unpredictable and can change within minutes from nice sunshine to apocalyptic blizzard. So to be honest, even though we stayed within a 1-hour radius, if that storm would have hit us as badly as forecasted, things might have actually turned out very badly. But hey, everything turned out fine. And we didn't actually experience any severe blizzards. Not by Icelandic standards anyway. So we went to a gigantic waterfall and took a bunch of photos and videos there. After that, we got some fish and chips for lunch and visited a nearby geyser. I said it before to my girlfriend and she didn't believe me. I thought this would smell quite eggy and quite bad, and I was right. Looks beautiful, but it does smell. It does stink, not gonna lie. Which I filmed for 10 minutes straight until my Sony ZV-1 gave me a red flashing battery indicator light, so I knew that it was about to shut off, when suddenly the geyser finally went off. Yes! Well then. The Leica Q2 performed flawlessly throughout it all, and one of the things that I like most about it is that I simply never had to worry about taking it out, even if the weather conditions might change and get very rough very quickly. Also, 28mm just seemed like the perfect focal length for most situations. It was wide enough to take in the beautiful landscapes, but not too wide so that it would distort the proportions of those places. On our way back to the hotel, we also visited a small crater, which usually, apparently, you do have to pay a €3 entry fee for, and that turned out to be wildly unspectacular. Anyway, we got back to our hotel fine, had a nice dinner and called it a day. That night, however, the storm finally arrived. Even though the weather forecast was actually not bad for the following day at all. But, oh well, apparently weather forecasts in Iceland are just as unreliable as anywhere else in the world. So, day 3, we were already staying longer at our hotel than we were planning to, and our next hotel that we already lost a night in was actually the one that we were looking forward to the most. So time was running out. But, of course, on that day, the weather really turned for the worse. I have never seen anything of the sort, and if I were to experience conditions like this in Germany, I would never even consider leaving the house and going for a drive. But hey, we simply weren't in the mood to spend another night in that hotel and give up on our scenic drive along the south coast of Iceland altogether. So I scrapped the snow and ice from our rental car and we hit the road. It was not good, at least for the first 1 or 2 hours. At times, visibility was down to nothing. We saw many cars, trucks and even a bus stuck on the side of the road, and we really had some heart-stoppingly close calls ourselves as well. But out of sheer stupidity, we decided to push through and not go back, and we were rewarded once again. Just for the record, our rental car did of course have spiked tires, 4-wheel drive and a locking differential, and considering how small and cheap it is, I actually do have to give it props for how well it performed for the entire time we were there. Anyway, after we got out on the other side of that storm, it was nothing but sunshine for the rest of the day. Just kidding, but we had some of that as well. So we made our first stop at yet another epic waterfall. And again, the Leica Q2 really came into its own in these kinds of conditions. There was of course a lot of water from the waterfall sprayed on us due to the strong winds. But never mind, I knew the Leica could take it. My fiance was using my old Fuji X-T30, which is not rated as water resistant, but despite that has never given me any trouble in bad weather conditions either. I tried to get some cool shots with this icicle without much success, but still it was yet another epic sight and I'm happy with the shots that I got. Also, after fearing that we would either be stuck in that first hotel for our entire time in Iceland or die in a blizzard on the road, actually being out and about in decent conditions just felt like such a relief. So we drove a little further to a small town called Vik, which is situated right on the south coast. If you ever happen to be there, I can highly recommend visiting a small restaurant called Soup Company. They make some great soup and bread there and you can have as much as you want, so we tried them all. Plus, they also do have great cake. Just as a side note, while we were on our way in those bad conditions, we came across more and more of these heavily modified vehicles that they call super jeeps. And I don't know, I guess they just spoke to my inner 10-year-old. Anyway, on we went, spent a couple of minutes to visit the small chapel situated on top of this small town and took in the views. And then we were almost running out of sunlight and went back on our way to the next hotel. And it was glorious. After we arrived, we had a really lovely dinner, then hit the sauna and the pool and made the most out of the little time that we had there. Day 4, sadly, was already our last full day in Iceland, so we got up early, enjoyed the ridiculously good breakfast at our hotel, checked out and went on a 30-minute drive to a glacier because we actually managed to book a tour last minute the night before. Now, seeing a glacier is cool and all, but I was probably most excited about our ride in this monster truck to get to the glacier, and I wasn't disappointed. These vehicles are insanely capable and I wish I could drive one myself at some point. Best of all, there were even more of them waiting at the glacier. That place looked like a monster truck exhibition. But whatever, there was also a glacier for us to explore. The Glacier Tour itself was nice and all, but maybe a bit boring and safe for my taste. And with a surprising amount of staged photo opportunities, which, is not my cup of tea. But hey, we booked the tour last minute and it was the only one where we could still get in at all. So I tried to make the best of it and took some photos of the abstract and surreal natural architecture inside the glacier. With the time it took to get us back to our car, half the day was already gone. We actually had plans to get back to Reykjavic in time to enjoy the sunset from Glacier Lagoon, but by the time we were done with our tour, which took way longer than expected, that was no longer really possible. So we just enjoyed our scenic drive home, had the most epic sunset and went straight to our hotel. We had a lovely last dinner in Reykjavic in a place called Reykjavic Kitchen, highly recommended. On the next day, we got up at 3 AM to catch our flight back to Frankfurt, and that's it really. So that was our short yet very intense time in Iceland. I had the Leica Q with me for the entire time and I couldn't have wished for a better camera. Just knowing how much abuse this thing can take gave me a peace of mind that I simply didn't expect to have when carrying and using such an expensive piece of tech in those kinds of conditions. On top of that, you get that full frame sensor paired with the beautiful Summilux 28mm lens. I'm certainly not taking full advantage of what this camera is capable of yet, but still I'm very happy with a lot of the shots that I got and excited to use this camera even more. Also, Iceland itself was just something else. It was a constant duality of quiet, breathtaking beauty and truly dangerous and unpredictable forces of nature, and I loved every second of it. Also, I have to say that even though it is certainly not cheap, they do have some great food over there. Couple that with all of the nice folks that we met along our way, and I'm already thinking about when I can get back to Iceland. In conclusion, we had a great time, and the Leica Q2, at least for me, was just about the perfect camera to take photos on this kind of trip. It performed flawlessly every step of the way, and I'm already excited to take it on more adventures in the future. Anyway, that's all I got for you today. If you liked this video, feel free to subscribe for more. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below. Until next time, take care. Bye bye.